Hello, world, and welcome to My Chains Fell Off Testimonials of the Bible Baptist Church located in Greendale, Indiana. This channel is dedicated to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and His saving grace. And we want you to know that anyone can be saved. Revelations chapter 12, verse 11 says, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death." With that being said, here is a testimony from a member of the Bible Baptist Church. Please enjoy. Do you mind introducing yourself?
No, don't mind at all. My name is Lonnie Money.
I have two questions for you before we get to your testimony. Here's question one. What is your favorite piece of scripture?
My favorite scripture, I do have many scripture that really bears to my heart, but Romans 8:28 is one of my most favorite ones that I've leaned on through these last years of my life here since I have gotten saved. Romans 8:28 tells us this, "And we know that all things work together for the good to them that love God, according to them who are called according to His purpose."
Okay, now for question two. What is your favorite hobby? And if you don't have a hobby, what do you enjoy most?
I have things I like to do. I do have things I like to do. I like hanging out with my brothers in Christ. It's such a blessing to come to church, to fellowship, to hang out with them, and to serve a loving God that at one time I just didn't know how loving He really was.
Thank you for answering the questions. Now, do you mind sharing your testimony?
Yes, sure will. Well, like I said, my name is Lonnie Money. I guess what you got to say, we've been raised up like a normal person, I guess you'd want to say, through trials and tribulations of the life. Just kind of, when Brother Todd asked me to do this, I got to thinking about where I came from and what really put me in the perspective of where God would have me to be. I started off, I got a mom and a dad and a family that started off pretty much normal. I just didn't know any difference what was going on there, and just wanted to say that started off real young, and of knowing what was there. Never seen what was going on, so on and so forth. Had a little bit different type of life, a little bit different type of life. It was kind of hard being growed up. I was the youngest. I am the youngest of the family. Some of my first memories when I was real young, that what brought me to the Lord in these later years. I got saved about 11 years ago is when I got saved. And what I think about a lot that has brought me to where I am today. And where I am today is a place that I want to be. It's a place that I want to be where I believe that Christ would have me to be here at the Bible Baptist. If He moves me there, if He moves me here, I believe that I am walking and trying to do the best that God has allowed me to do with His testimony that He has given me of the things that's happened. So I kind of got to start off by saying, when I was young, I really didn't know too much. Kind of one of them odd kids that never really fit in. Just had a lot of different things in my life that never really was quite right. It never did fit in. Never really had many friends or things like that. It just no one around to guide, to direct, or to show, or even to raise. So some of my earliest memories is really pretty bad. I'd be honest with you. Some of my earliest memories in school, and actually before school, was being whooped, beat, tortured. Things like this that would really make you question what family is, what love is, what the things that, how could this be in a person's life? Now, I wasn't thinking this when I was young. I wasn't thinking this when I was young, in that 4 and 5, 6 year old range stuff, and really didn't think too much about it. I thought that was kind of normal. I just thought that was normal. I thought that's the way you got treated. I thought that's the way things just happen in life that we just don't quite understand. So when I was young and there was many things that going on, and with the, not to blame anybody, because for everything I would ever say, I want God to have the glory. God has put me in a position in all the things in life's trials and tribulations and all the things that was in the past has always set me to right where I am today. I had a person in the church there a couple years back asked me, would you change anything if you could? And there was a few men standing around, and when they asked that, they said they'd change this, and they would change some spots in their life that has they've done bad. And then they asked me, and I said no, I would. They said, why? Because the things that happened has made me who I am today. And I can't ever understand. I'm gonna put it that way. Let's put it this way. I don't understand why it happened, but I know it happened out for the good. Anything and everything that was happening in my life, I don't understand. And some people do come from to realization that the things that their past, they can't change their past, but they sure can change their future. So as a young child there, I remember the things that would hurt you, that would, I'm the youngest, so I got two older brothers, and well, they were mean. They would beat you and lock you and torture you, and above and beyond what siblings do. And about that age, around that 6 years old, I remember telling my parents, hey, this is what's going on. And I'm sure I didn't say it that way. This is what was going on. And I remember one of them just laughed at me, thought it was funny. And that went on for quite a few years. I was the youngest of the whole family there. I had some cousins that lived nearby, and an uncle and an aunt. And I was the youngest out of everybody. Then as time would tell, I was around 6, and there was a cousin of mine. He was 4 years younger than me. So I was 6 and he was 2 at that time. So, a 6-year-old don't get along with a 2-year-old. But as he grew, he became my friend. As he got a little older, he's the only friend I had. The only friend. And it just breaks my heart to think he was the only friend I had. He went through the same things that I would go through. And he's the only friend that I had. Didn't have nobody else. And as we grew, we went to school like we normally would, but like I said, he was 4 years younger than I was. And then one day he was in kindergarten, and him and his mom got to go to the zoo with the school. And he came back and he didn't have to ride the bus that day. He didn't have to ride that bus that day. I wish he would have been on it. But he didn't have to ride the bus home that day. And his parents just got him a brand new bicycle. First day he ever had it. Just picked him up a brand new bicycle. And as the bus came over, there was a large truck that just left my driveway, pulled out as the bus was coming up over the hill, because we kind of live on a hill. And a large truck pulled out of the driveway and took off down the hill. And as the bus came over, I was looking at the large truck, and I see my cousin on his brand new bicycle, running right underneath the wheels of the truck. He was my only friend. I couldn't understand why things like this could ever happen. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for tearing up. This happened 37 years ago. And I still remember it like it was today, just like yesterday. It's just still there. And I don't mean to get teary-eyed or anything of that nature, but I didn't understand why. Now, this is an 11-year-old son, or 11-year-old kid, just looking and did not understand why, and how. I mean, as 11 years old, I did. I mean, I'm not going to say it. I questioned God. I didn't know God very well or anything of that nature. Been to church a handful of times. You know, parents would take you there every once in a great while. I mean, I was only 11. By the time I was 11 years old, probably went to church maybe 10, 12 times. Didn't understand anything about what God was and who God is and so on and so forth. I didn't remember that. I do remember question, how could God allow something so horrific to such a young child? I remember his mother's screams. I remember all the details, just like they were yesterday. And then time, as you know, kind of heals things. And like I said, really didn't have no friends. Kind of an odd guy, kind of an odd kid, I guess you want to say. Really never had no friends. We had neighbors, and there were, boys there at my age and so on and so forth, but we really never did get along or play together, so I was kind of alone. I was alone. And this is for God's glory. And this is for God's glory. 11, 12 years old, dealing with everything that he was dealing with at the house. So about 11 years old, after he got killed, I went into, I guess kind of withdrawal. Couldn't trust nobody. Didn't want to trust nobody. Hurt so bad that I just can't explain. And then, of course, I had brothers around and some cousins, and they were older than I was, and they're older than I am. About 4 years, roughly, about 4 years. And then, so I started hanging out with them, trying to have somewhere to belong. They let me hang out with them as long as they were getting what they wanted. Used, abused, so on and so forth. As long as they get, but I accepted that. I accepted that as a way of life. It couldn't be no better than this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think about everything and each and every day on Donnie or my cousin there. Lord, I don't do that each and every day, but I still remember. And I remember in them times when I was growing up is why? I questioned. Not saying it's a good thing, and I'm not saying that at all, but I questioned. So as I got a little older, around 12 years old, just a little bit later after that, I came to the point and didn't really have no friends, didn't have nobody that wanted to be around me. People wanted things if they could get something from you, or use you for something, or something of that nature, or, that was fun for them to beat you and lock you in the closets and take everything that you thought that you had away from you. It was different. It was different about that time. And then as time progresses and whatever, I'm about 12 years old and come to a point in my life I really didn't want to go on. Really didn't want to go on. 12 years old, tried so many different ways to die, to kill myself. But I knew something told me, even at that young age, that something that I'd go to hell. I knew I'd go to hell if I killed myself. And I thought that's the reason why I would go to hell, is because I killed myself. But I just couldn't handle the pain any longer. So when I was then just a little after that, just soon after that, then we found the drugs. We found the weed, the speed, the coke. 12 years old, smoking, drinking trying to kill the pain. And this is what everybody wanted around you. This is what your families looked like that they wanted. So I drank. I smoked. I did the things that I thought that allowed me to be around them. All I wanted was someone to want me as much as I wanted them. Someone that loved me, just coming from that, something from love, someone to care if you was there that day or not. I found that. I found that in smoking the weed, taking the pills, snorting the coke, taking the acid. And that was all fine and dandy. Then grade school. Just grade school. If I recall right, it was 6th grade. About 6th grade. I think I was 13 years old at this time. And I didn't find. And I ran into a young girl that I thought I was just in love with. I really did. Really thought I was in love with. She had a brother. I was a tad bit older. I was a tad bit older than her and just a little bit younger than him. And they just fit my style, I guess you'd want to say, especially what we was living in that day. So we partied, we drank, we did all the things. I got introduced to her family. And it was been right when I was real early 13. And I got introduced to her family. And her family was so much different than mine. So much different. They kind of hung out together. They hung each other. It seemed like what I thought at this time was love. What I thought was love. She came from a divorced family. But I seen her family and it was different. It was different, a lot different than what I had. A lot different than what I had. And it was one of them that they accepted you for the things that you've done. The partying, we used to party. We used to drink, we used to do all this stuff, and we used to have that there as a fleshly good time, as I know today. We had a fleshly good time. And that lasted just a little while. Didn't last very long at all. And then she moved away. And then when she left, well, of course I had to find that someplace else. But I seen a little bit of what a family, what love could be. At least what I thought was love. And in that, and all that time there, and that short time that I had, with her at that time and her family, I didn't really see what really true love really is, but I seen what I thought what love should be. So when she left, she moved away, and she moved away. So she was finding that someplace else. I found it in partying, in the drugs, and the things that just led my life down completely the wrong path. Got introduced to people that should not be introduced to. Things and just all this stuff. I mean, especially as a young 13-year-old. It was about 14 years old maybe or so. Somewhere in that neighborhood, she moved back. Maybe a little bit later than that, somewhere in that neighborhood. All kinds of stuff has happened between then and then. And I tell you this for all God's glory, on how good God really, really is. And even through all the things that happened, how good God really is. Did I know it at this time? Oh, absolutely not. I was so far away from God, the only thing I wanted to do was just stop the pain. I want the pain to end, just to end the pain so I didn't have to deal with each and every day. She came back, we got back together. Her brother, we were friends. We ran, we partied, we did everything that teenagers, shouldn't be doing. I'll say that much. I had some cousins that were around, brothers that are around, just adding on the things that I knew that was not good, but may be acceptable to what may be acceptable to them. And I just wanted to fit in. I didn't fit into people. I've been an oddball person. I've just been kind of odd. I've kind of always been stepped outside of what things have been. I was a smart kid. I did good in school right up till me and that girl got together. And then I had to prove how cool I was or how I wanted to fit in. So I failed classes just on purpose, just to prove that I could fit in. And then when she came back, we fell right back together again. We were together, and we stayed together for a while. I seen her family. We wasn't God honoring. And as we got older, as we got a little bit older, we dated for quite a while. We dated for about 2 years. So I was really getting close to 17. I was getting really close to this 17. And all the partying and all the drugs and all the things that we did and the ungodly things that we did. But we did exactly what sinners do. We did exactly what sinners do. Now this is the part where I was just trying to fit in. Just trying to fit in. And then, long story made short is there was a day that, me and her brother got into it. Like people do. We got into it. And then, she was doing this, she was doing that. She ran off and did her own thing, which kind of left me standing there. But I got attached to her family because I really didn't know anything else besides her family. At this time, my brothers and cousins and things like that were just so far gone and pointing me in the right or the wrong direction, and I had to do so many things to be around, to be liked by them. And at the age of 14, I remember one time I got in a fight with my oldest brother, and I was praying that he would just kill me. He was killing me. I came to my last straw. I was done. There was nothing else that was going to stop me. Now he's 8 years older than I am. I was 14 and just a scrawny little kid. Didn't fit in. Just a scrawny little kid, 14 years old. And I remember just going at it not like brothers should, let's put it that way. We were fighting and fist fighting and just bloodying each other up, so on and so forth. And I was not going to stop, and he's going to have to kill me until I stopped. And then I slipped on a rug, and it came out from underneath me, and he did one of these jumps, and he busted for my ribs. Well, that made me stop. But from that point on, I really didn't have much care in my life. So this kind of all intertwines with, the things of the past and so on and so forth, because there was just no one to love you. But I did love her family. They meant a lot to me. I hurt them. I did. I hurt them, but they meant a lot to me. And I kind of thought this was normal. I did think it was kind of normal to just to be that way, to backstab, to lie, to fight. I just thought that was normal. I really did think it was normal. And then after she left, I like I said, I hurt her family. She left and she went and did her own thing. And I was real early 17. And God let me be alone for a while to show me things. And I did not know this. I give God all the credit to show me things that was wrong in my life. That really was showing me what was wrong in my life. Did I give God the credit at the time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I cussed and rant and raved and drank and partied and anything else in between, trying to, hide that pain. The pain of just not being loved. Because how can someone love me? There's no one that can love me. Obviously. She left, my family left, they always told you the bad things, they hurt you, they beat you, they do this, they do that. No one can love me. I knew this. I've always known that. All through my growing up. Like I said, Earliest child memories, being beat, watching my cousin die, the only friend I ever had, watching him die. How could do it? Mom and Dad didn't care. They cared long. I mean, they didn't. As long as you stayed away from them and you wasn't bothering Dad, it was all right. You know what I mean? So I kind of left home when I was 12 years old, got caught up in a whole big bunch of stuff that you ain't supposed to get caught up in. How could someone love me? No one loved me. Absolutely not. And that was my thought. That was my thought. Can't be loved. You're unlovable. Unlovable. Impossible that someone could love you. Which was the one thing I was looking for most in my life. So a few months went by. After the girl left, a few months went by. And then I met the woman I call my wife now. We were 17 years old. I met her. She was 15. She's my wife till today. We got together, and I seen something different in her. The few months that I had alone, that was just whatever it was, left me to a point to see the difference in what really love was. And I met my wife. Well, obviously, she was my girlfriend at that time. Well, I met her. I met her by circumstances that it was very different. A guy I knew was dating her cousin, and he said, "I want to introduce you to somebody," in a weird, in a way, and I want to introduce you, and he was just talking about this, that, and everything else, and so on and so forth. But he introduced us that night, me being me, and I just walked out. I went to her house to pick her up. We were headed to the mall, and it was it was different. And we walked into her room, embarrassed as all day get out. You wouldn't think I would be, but I was embarrassed as all day get out, so I left. I just walked out and sat back in the car. She came out into the car. We all got in the car, and we went up to the we went up to the Forest Fair Mall. And as we was walking in, I seen something different about her. She wasn't loud. She wasn't, well, she wasn't loud. She was shy. She was reserved. She was pulled back a little more than everything that I'm used to. Everything that I'm used to, I noticed something totally different about her. And I noticed it right off the bat. There's something that was really attractive to me. Really attractive. I am 17 years old and she's only 15. So as much as I can say about that. And we was walking into it. We was walking into the mall, and there happened to be a jewelry store right there on our left-hand side. And I grabbed her hand. First words I ever said to her, "Do you want to get married?" Fortunately, she did say yes. She did say yes. Being as reserved as I thought she was, she still said yes. Which that started it all off. And we've been together ever since. It was nice. It was nice. And I seen it. And as our relationship grew, I got to know her family. And her family was totally different than anything that I've ever noticed before. Was her family perfect? Well, obviously not. Obviously not. It was not perfect. But her family was different. They cared for each other. They didn't have to serve each other to be liked by each other. She hung out with her cousins. She hung out with her dad, her mom. I'm not saying her family was perfect, her sister. I mean, they grew together. They grew up together. They knew each other. They loved each other. Something I've never seen before. I'm talking about just something wanting to be around someone because that's who they were. This was really a blessing to see, which I would never call it a blessing at that time. But I did recognize it was different. It was different to see how family could get along. How could the difference be between all these other families that I know, myself, my cousin's family, how could they be different than, and then, an old girlfriend's family? How could this all be different? And, growing up in school and, never really did go into people's houses, but it was seeing the different ways how people were raised and things like that. And how could it be that this was totally foreign to me? totally, absolutely foreign to me on how things could be different. How someone could like someone just because of who they are. It was really different to me. Made me very intrigued about getting to know more. And our relationship grew, and we were doing things like sinners do. Like I said, we were young. We were young, and we were not living a right life. But she was a good person. And a person alone, she was a very good person. Her family was good people. As far as I could tell, they were family. It was different. It was different. Well, she ended up pregnant. I was 17, she was 15 years old. She ended up pregnant. And I remember just talking about how good God really is to you, and not even you knowing, not giving him credit for it, and how long-suffering he is in our lives, and the things that he shows us that we can only look back on, because we can't change our past. We can change our future. And I remember going to someone in the family, a couple people in the family, and I remember telling them that, way before I would ever say anything to mom and dad or anything of that nature, before I say anything to anybody, we knew she was pregnant, and and I was talking to someone there, and I asked him, I said, what would you do? What would you do? And he gave me the worldly advice. Me being young, and he's telling me that, I don't need to be tied down, and this is that, and why would she do this, and why would they do that, and she's probably this, and she's probably that, and so on and so forth. You should get the baby aborted. You should get the baby aborted. One of the hardest things I think I've ever heard come from anybody was, I'm not saying that you can't be forgiven for it, and you can. But it was one of the things that I just didn't quite understand, especially coming from this person that I said it to. Why would you abort the baby? Because you're too young, you're too this, you're too that. Long story short is, no, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We buckled down. I straightened up my life. When she told me she was pregnant, I straightened up my life, and I did what a person's supposed to do, at least to the best of my knowledge. I did what I was supposed to do. We stayed together. We're still married today. We got married about 2 years later after we met. Actually, it was 2 years and 1 day later. We got married. We had our son. We had our son there after we got married there. We had our son there. And I just want to show you how good God really is. Now, all the things through life that would pull you away and to draw you away from the love that God has for you. When I looked into his eyes after his birth there, and I looked into his eyes, my son there, for the very first time, I seen something that only God could give. A love for my kid. A love for the woman that gave me that love. So I seen that I never wanted to make the same mistakes that I've been growing up in. And to kind of fast forward a little bit, we stayed together, we got married, we did not praise the Lord with our lives. We were still sinners. We still did not do the things that we supposed to do. We drank, we partied, but we really settled down and we got away from all the things that we knew of. Her family, we stayed around. We stayed around her family for a long time. The Lord took her mom home a long time ago, 20-some years ago. Our last child was just born right before the Lord take her home. And I say this because right there before she went home to be with the Lord, did she know the Lord? And can I say that she know the Lord? She was led. She called upon the Lord. I didn't understand this because one time I was standing in the kitchen, and it was my dad, and like I said, we came from a home. I came from a home that would occasionally, go to church and so on and so forth. But something must have been laid on his heart in that time, when I was probably 20 years old, 21 years old at that time. And he asked me, he didn't ask me that, do you believe that, the Son of God, Jesus, is God, that he died and was raised for your sin. And I accepted the Lord at that time. I believe I accepted the Lord, but it was more of going right back into just doing what someone else would have me to do. Now, I'm not saying that the Lord didn't save me at that time, because even at that time, I believed there was something else. So right back into the world, did everything that we wasn't supposed to do. But what it boils down to is, before her mom went home to be with the Lord, and I say that because she made a profession of faith. She did make a profession of faith. And that was truly a blessing, knowing that that's where she's at today. I do believe she was saved. Not because she was forced into believing, because she did really call upon the Lord. Now there's a guy that's saying, did I know the Lord? Well, I know who he is. And that's a lot of things in our lives, that we know who he is. But he couldn't love me. I still always had that in my mind. He can't love me. I'm still unlovable. No matter what I've done in my life and everything that's been done and so on and so forth, and all the trials and all the tribulations, no one could love me. But I seen something when that peace came over, when after she did pass away, that there was a peace there, that there was a love there. And I got to thinking about that. And then me and the wife, we dabbled in church here and there once or twice, a few times throughout the kids growing up and so on and so forth. And I say this, and this is the part that I know that the reason why God meant this all for good. As we got a little older, our kids, and I didn't raise them, but I raised them in what I thought God would have for us. I raised them in a place where, we didn't cuss, we didn't rant and rave. I mean, we did, but we didn't do it around them. We smoked, but we didn't do it around them. We drank, we didn't do it around them. We tried to keep that all hidden from them as best as we could to a certain degree. We got that away from them, and I didn't allow my kids to, just to rant and rave and cuss and do this and that and everything else. And I thought this was what my life was about. I thought, I'm doing good. If you would have asked me that at that moment, in that part of my life, and I've been right about that 35 years old at that moment, and you'd have asked me because, if you died today, would you go to heaven? I would have said, oh yeah, I hope so. I've been a pretty good person. I've treated my kids well. I treated my wife decently, and don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near perfect. I've got a good family. I would have said, yeah, I think I will because of what I have done. For what I've done, that's the reason what I was leaning on. I was trusting in everything that I believed in. Everything, because I raised, a good family. And as my kids got a little older, my son started dating someone outside of the Baptist religion, outside of the Bible, I should say. Outside of the Bible, he started dating someone. I would have considered myself Baptist, didn't even know what it meant. I couldn't tell you what it was, had no idea. But I would have considered myself, if you would ask me, I've been Baptist. And he started dating someone outside of what the Bible teaches about, right, in Catholicism. And he got drawn away, and I noticed he got farther and farther away. But, like I said, I was trying to do good in raising my kids in, what I considered a Christian home. But it really wasn't Christian, just in what I considered it. So when he got into that, this is part of the testimony, because when he got into that, I wanted to find out the truth. What was truth? What is truth? What is it? Because what they believe is totally outside of what I believe, or what at least I thought I believed, let's put it that way. So I kind of looked into what was going on with his relationship, and he was steadfast into it, and he dated this girl for a while. Well, at that same time, my daughter started dating someone. And, one of my daughters, my oldest daughter, started dating someone. Well, seeing someone, I'll put it that way. And as odd as this may sound, he invited me to church. Now, we would have been into church, a couple of churches that are really close to the house, and just went in there, and it seemed like he was being judged. It would seem like, he didn't wear a suit. At that time, I wasn't wearing a suit. I wasn't, a long-haired hippie guy. I mean, just things of that nature. And he he invited us to this church. He was a member here. He is a member here, I should say. He is a member here. And he invited us to this church. I have never heard of this church, never seen it. I have been up and down this road, hundreds of times. This would have been right at about 11 years ago. Well, maybe 12 years ago. And my son was dating someone, and I seen where he was going. It didn't seem like the truth. I knew enough to know better than it was sin with what he was getting into. I just knew enough. I knew enough there. So I came to this church, the Bible Baptist. And I came in, and it was different. I walked in, I was greeted. People shook my hand. It was different. Never had this happen before. People shook my hand. Just wanted to see who I was. Talk to me. It was nice. Not being judgmental. Didn't look like them. It didn't have that persona that they were putting on. But it seemed like they had as I know now, a genuine love for some people. For a person. They had genuine love for a person. Didn't call upon that right then. Didn't see all that at that moment. And there was a few people. I now remember who invited me in. It was good. And I noticed I came in and I sit down and I listened to the pastor. And he was just teaching me. I can't remember the exact sermon he was teaching on that morning, because I came for the 11 o'clock service. And they handed us a welcome packet at that time. We didn't fill it out. I didn't think I was ever going to be back, but something was bothering me. And preacher, he got up there, which is my preacher now, and he got up there and he taught and he preached. And he had something that really stood out. He had a genuine love for sinners. He had the genuine love for sinners. Got me thinking, God can't love me. I'm unlovable. I know this. All the things in the past, impossible. All the directions in the past, impossible. Can't be loved. But I noticed my wife. She was paying so close attention. I had little kids at that time. And I think just a couple of them, my son did not come with me at that time. He was in a religion, trying to do the works there, and he wouldn't come. And anyways, we sit down and we sit down and we heard the message. And then when we left, that message, it burned in my heart. It burned in my heart. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but it was about the love of God. I'm thinking, how? How could someone love me? Impossible. Kept thinking that. We hit and miss. We come a couple of times here, a couple of times there. Not very much, just very sporadic. Because God couldn't love me. I thought, there's no way. There's no way. It can't be. I've invited a couple people. The couple times I was in church, and a few times I was in church there when I was really, really young. Really young. It was Brother Sears. And he got up there and he was teaching and he was preaching, but his voice, the way he handled himself, how he handled himself, I remember that. From that young tender age, I remember there was something there different that I seen in this preacher. And I told my wife about it, and it was good. And my son was, separate from us and so on and so forth, and he didn't really care for us at this time too much. And it was, and that's good, because this all works out for God's glory, according to His purpose. So, we came a few times, and I got the kids in church, and we started looking at this and looking at that, and and before we know it, it was a few months in, because we come very sporadically. It was a few months in. Preacher asked me if I ever filled out a card, a welcome card, and I was like, no, never did. And a member from the church, I filled one out, and one of the members at that time came out to my house. And he's a man about my age, so on and so forth. And I seen something in his eyes that was different. It's just different. The love that he had for God. Like I said, I had no idea what love for God is right at this moment. And he told me, and he was teaching me, and he was helping me out. And I got into, I started coming to church a little bit more after that visit. I started coming to church, bringing the whole family, and so on and so forth, minus my son. And it was about some time later, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years later, I got in church, got baptized. I became a member of the church. I got baptized and became a member of the church, and really started growing and started digging in to what God really has for a person in their life. Really has for a person. I've been hurt so bad, and I thought God was doing it. But I've come to find out, through all the trials, through all the tribulation, God meant it for good. You heard me quote Romans 8:28. All things work out for the good for them that love God. I love God now. And I look back on everything that happened in my past and everything that was there in a long time ago in the past. Did the Lord really love me? Yes, he did. I come to the saving grace knowledge that he so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. I got to thinking about that. Am I the world? Am I part of the world? Or have I been set aside? Am I part of the world? I just didn't know. And then one day, Pastor was teaching a message. It really burdened my heart. How Christ came. He left his place on high, sitting on the right hand of the throne of God, left his place on high, to be born in flesh, to suffer for what I have done. He that knew no sin became sin for me. Died on that cross and was buried and risen again because he had no sin. But he took my sin to that grave with him and left it there. Could I really do this? Could I really believe? And now this is right about 10 years ago. This was probably right after, even after becoming a member of the church. I wondered, could he do that for me? I called upon the Lord. I got saved because I realized that God, that the Son of God, our Lord, our Savior, came, left his gloriousness, his glory, to save me and people just like me. Some of us come from a really hard background where we were I'm going to say aggressor, and I'm not pointing anybody out. And some of us come from backgrounds that, was church raised. And some of us come from somewhere in the middle. My friends, my neighbors, trust me, the Lord God loves you. I had a problem. I never thought no one could love me. But I found out how much God does love me. For even in the Bible here, it tells us in Romans 5:8. Romans 5:8 tells us that even though we were in sin and not loving God and never not knowing what he has done for us, but in Romans 5:8 tells us, but God commendeth his love towards us, and yet while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. I had to realize that Christ died for me. I had to realize that I sinned against a holy God. Even though through all the trials and all the things, them were only meant for one reason. They were meant to draw me unto him. The trials that are going to do one or two things in your life. They're either going to draw you nigh to God, or they're going to draw you away from God. I had, through the first, we'll say 30 some years, 35 years of my life, I draw myself away from God. But not knowing that he meant it for good. Not knowing that all the trials, don't let things that people said, has done, and has drawn you, that it would draw your flesh away from God. Don't let them things hinder you from seeing the love of God that he has given you. He has given you his own begotten Son, one that has died for you. Now, I'm not comparing, or neither would I ever, but in Genesis 50, we know the story of Joseph and how he was in Egypt, and there was many things that could happen to him that was very wrong. It was very wrong. And I'm looking at the Bible, and this is the Bible, the King James Bible. But I look at this, so I don't mess up anything. I get nervous especially if I'm talking. But Joseph is talking to his brothers after all things are over. God has just brought them back to him, so on and so forth. But he went through Pharaoh's house. He was done really, really wrong, according to what we would look at, right? But he looks at his brothers. His brothers wanted to kill him. But then they said, we'll sell him into Egypt. And he went through all kinds of stuff while he was in Egypt. All kinds of stuff. Too much to get into right now. But what does he say to them after it was all said and done? But as for you, ye thought it evil against me. But God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. I can never compare myself to Joseph or anyone in the Bible, and not trying to line up with them or not. But I can say this much right here. I can't bring much people alive, but I can bring you what the Lord has given me. My son, the one that they told me to abort, is a member of this church also. I have grandkids. From him, I have grandkids from my daughters. I can't say many people, it's not that all the trials, all the tribulations, maybe this story, maybe this testimony can show you or help you see that God still does love you, even though the trials that you went through, which have brought me to the place I am today. I was asked earlier, like I said a couple years ago, would I change anything? This is the reason why I wouldn't change anything. Because I wouldn't know. If I didn't have the past that I had, I would never have the future that I have today. The future of the day is, I know I'm loved by God. I'm saved. I have a home in heaven. I just pray that this testimony can help you see the need, that even through the trials, do not let them to draw you away from God, but may they draw you unto God. According to his purpose, he means it for good. God does nothing wrong, because our ways are not his way. The Bible clearly tells us this. Our ways are not his way. Our thoughts are not his thoughts. He does know the end from the beginning, where we don't. I say, neighbor, look unto the Lord, because he's got more for you. Thank you.
Within my life, for so long you were right. When I was wrong, I can't repay all the love you've given me. You were my friend when no one cared. I felt alone, but you were there. yours, Lord. Take my life. Make me what you'd have me be.